Castlevania is one of those sacred franchises in gaming that's up there with such titles as Metal Gear Solid, Mega Man, and Metroid. The classic tale of Vampire Hunter vs. Dracula has always appealed to a wide audience, and the original NES title was no exception. However, despite being such a beloved franchise, Castlevania has had its fair share of misses over the years. Who can forget the horror of Castlevania 64, or the disappointment brought by Castlevania Judgment? But then the series has had some of the most memorable games in history, like Super Castlevania 4 and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Originally titled simply Lords of Shadow, Konami revealed that this was in fact a Castlevania title developed by Spain-based developer Mercury Steam Entertainment. This new Castlevania is a complete reimagining of the series, with no connection to any of the previous games. After seeing it in action, many people were very skeptical, including myself. After all, it did look like a God of War clone. Other action-adventure games that have tried to copy this formula, such as Dante's Inferno, have met with middling to poor results. But Castlevania Lords of Shadow is thankfully no Dante's Inferno, and will surprise many, such as myself, who had pretty much written it off. Lords of Shadow takes place during the Middle Ages in 1047 across southern Europe. Put simply, something has gone seriously wrong. Evil creatures of the night have begun to ravage the lands. Worse still, the souls of the dead are unable to enter into heaven or hell. Things are so bad that many believe God has abandoned humanity.
Men of faith claim that this is a test from God to strengthen our spirit. Perhaps this is true. Or perhaps it is simply a pious lie. If it is true, darkness has come to engulf once proud humanity, and we are witnessing the end of mankind.
Gabriel Belmont's beloved wife is brutally murdered, and her soul is unable to cross over to the afterlife. Gabriel is a member of the Brotherhood of Light, an elite group of knights that defends the innocent against evil. The Holy Knight hears that he may be able to bring his wife back through certain means. So, with good intentions, off he goes to fight the darkness that is plaguing the world. Konami associated Hideo Kojima with the game, leaving one to think that, if nothing else, the story would be incredibly deep, thought-provoking, and cause one to examine their beliefs about good and evil. While the story isn't bad, it's certainly not up to Metal Gear standards. It's just that the characters feel like they lack depth. Still, the story is interesting enough for an action game to keep you moving forward to complete your quest. It's been speculated that Kojima only had a small bit of input in the game, and I feel that this is probably the case. Graphically, Lords of Shadow is gorgeous, with a huge variety of terrain to traverse. To be perfectly honest, besides the first level, I was beginning to wonder if this was a Castlevania game at all. This is because many of the stages in Castlevania are bright and colorful, despite the decaying structures around them. As you progress, levels take on a much darker tone, making you feel that this is indeed a Castlevania game. Levels are set up in a linear fashion, each broken up into chapters. Within each chapter, you select individual levels as you progress. There is incentive to go back in order to level up your abilities and to find hidden items, though I question how many will feel the need to explore every nook and cranny of the game. Early on, Lords of Shadow does a tremendous job mixing up action and puzzles. However, later on the puzzles become more difficult, and sometimes downright frustrating. Also, later levels will give you no clue about where you need to go, and this will no doubt leave many players very annoyed. On the other hand, like God of War, boss battles are fun and well thought out. Also, like God of War, some of the bigger bosses are simply amazing from a visual standpoint, and will no doubt make your jaw drop.
Those falling rocks are too dangerous! Move away!
Combat is deep, satisfying, and diverse. You level up your abilities by simply fighting enemies. As you progress, you'll add more skills to your repertoire, so many in fact that it can be a bit difficult to keep up with them all. This is the type of system where one can get away with button mashing early on, but needs to truly learn to master the various nuances of the combat system in order to truly be effective. The music accompanies the atmosphere perfectly. While I won't say the soundtrack is as impactful as Symphony of the Night, it really does add to the atmosphere. Early on, you'll feel like you're in a medieval Lord of the Rings-like fantasy setting, but later on the soundtrack becomes more aphotic. The voice acting is also well done. Sir Patrick Stewart narrates much of the game's story, and you can never go wrong there.
So it seems Pan has saved Gabriel once more. His arrival most fortuitous. Gabriel now enters the outskirts of the vampire's territory. A cold winter has gripped this land for centuries, driving out the inhabitants to warmer climes. Those stubborn enough to stay have contended with the cold death that visits them each and every night, taking their loved ones away forever. The vampires thrive in the cold and terrorize the living who crave warmth and companionship. This night a warrior will come, a knight in shining armor with death at his side. He comes for you, creatures of the night.
Gabriel is voiced by Scottish actor Robert Carlyle, and while he does a good job of bringing the character to life, you oftentimes wish that the script called for more depth to his character. I suppose you could say that he's on the same level as Kratos as far as depth is concerned, but simply not as memorable.
I have come to fulfill the prophecy.
My acolytes were not lying. A warrior from the Brotherhood, here on lichened soil. I wonder, warrior, if you know where you are, and who I am.
I am on desecrated land, and you, and those of your clan, do not deserve to live.
You say you are here to fulfill a prophecy.
You and the other Lords of Shadow are protecting a power in your sanctuaries. I have come to reclaim that power.
You, alone, you dare enter my inner sanctum and dictate your petty mortal terms to me. I am immortal, little man. And your pathetic prophecy is known to me. But you are ignorant. Ignorant of the real truth of your situation.
It is you who are ignorant. Ignorant of the pain and suffering you have brought to this land.
Early on, there's a lot of fun to be had with Castlevania Lords of Shadow, but as the game progresses, the puzzles become punishingly difficult, as do some of the battles. Even if you set the game to the easiest difficulty, it's not an easy game, and one must truly have patience to complete it. I do feel that there are some design changes that could have kept the game flowing a lot better, and that is where God of War 3 trumps Lords of Shadow in most instances. However, the overall gameplay of Lords of Shadow is, at least in my opinion, better and more varied than God of War 3.
The next slab, quickly!
I can't hold it! Hurry!
Castlevania Lords of Shadow is a terrific game with high-quality production values that should satisfy God of War fans more than old-school Castlevania fans. Nevertheless, if you're willing to embrace the reboot of the story and look past a few of the game's minor frustrations, I would say that Castlevania Lords of Shadow is indeed worth your hard-earned dollars. It's a huge game that will take many hours to complete. The music and voice acting are great, and the overall design is quite good as well.
Ghouls!
Let me say that Castlevania Lords of Shadow, or God of Castlevania as I like to call it, doesn't have an original bone in its body. Despite the fact that it blatantly steals from God of War, its execution is done so well with its splendid gameplay, great voice acting, and good design that it's hard not to embrace unless you're dead set against a 3D Castlevania game. So if you've been waiting to do battle with the creatures of the night, get your vampire killer whip ready.
Thank God that you are still among the living, my friend. Word has spread of our quest. The vampire clan have slaughtered this entire village, and now they're expecting us.